8 years and 5 months ago today, 2 officers with the New York Police Department's aviation unit responded to a radio call that a private plane had struck one of the twin towers of New York City's World Trade Center. As the officers got into their NYPD helicopter that clear day, it immediately became clear that something much bigger was happening. From his vantage point, thousands of feet in the air, Detective Greg Semendinger reached for his camera and began photographing what he saw. These are his photographs, many of which have never been seen before this week, when some of them were released to ABC News because of a Freedom of Information Act request. The chief curator of the National September 11th Memorial Museum calls these images, quote, some of the most exceptional images in the world of this event. This was not the first time that Detective Semendinger was called to the Twin Towers to respond to an attack. He helped rescue dozens of people from the roof of the North Tower after the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. Joining us now in studio is Detective Greg Semendinger. He's now retired from the New York City Police Department after 35 years, including 20 years with the aviation unit. Detective, thanks very much for your time tonight.
It's good to be here. Thank you very much.
What were your orders? What were you expecting to do when you went up in the air on September 11th?
We responded to the scene by a call for a light plane that had hit the towers. We didn't realize the extent of what went on. But when we looked at the World Trade Center, which was 11 miles away, we could see that it was a lot worse than what we thought it was.
You were 11 miles when you first...
We were at Floyd Bennett Field.
Okay. And then how close did you get?
When we got there, we got very close. We got as close as we could so that we could try to see through the smoke that was on the roof. You know, hoping that somebody made it to the roof.
You were hoping that you could do what you did in 1993 in terms of rescuing people?
Well, I wouldn't have been able to do it because I was in a smaller helicopter,
okay.
But I would have been able to call the larger helicopters that we had out there. I was in a patrol helicopter that day.
Okay. I understand sometime after 1993, it was the New York Fire Department and the Port Authority that made the decision to keep the doors to the roof locked. I guess you wouldn't have known that at that time.
No.
Why did you take pictures? Was that part of your mission, what you were expected to do then?
No, my hobby is photography. I've carried a camera for many, many years. Usually on every flight I had a camera.
And so you decided to take them it's just instinct?
Well, in between doing the surveys of something like this is monumental.
Yeah.
And if we can record it and get it on film, then it's a true record of what happened.
Am I right that you saw, from that vantage point, you saw the plane hit the second tower?
No, my partner did.
Okay.
It wasn't on my side of the aircraft. My partner, Jimmy Saccone, he looked over. He had about a 5 or 10 second view of the aircraft before he hit. And he said something real quick, and I looked over, and I could see the fireball go up in the air, and I could see all the papers that were blowing out of the building. It was just unbelievable. Up to that point, we had thought that it was an accident.
So that moment was when you realized this is...
Everybody realized that. We could hear it on the radio. We knew that it was then a terrorist attack.
Were you afraid at that point?
Not really. We were concentrating on what we were doing. The main thing that gave us a little apprehension was when one of the tower operators told us that there was a target moving in our direction at 400 knots. We didn't know at the time that it was the fighters that were coming from the northeast. We thought it was another aircraft. And I really had a gut feeling that it was going to be the Empire State Building. Thank goodness it wasn't.
This long since the incident, I know we were just saying in the break before the interview started that you didn't know that these photos were going to be released this week. It sort of took you by surprise when you saw it.
And it did. I didn't find out until about 3 or 4 days ago.
Was it? Is it surprising to you? How does it feel to see these images in the public, out in the public eye?
I think they should have been out there a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's a shame that they've been pretty much buried for this period of time. It's good that they're out there. It gives a different perspective of the whole incident and shows it in its entirety from above. We were the only ones there, and I was fortunate to be in that position and to be able to take photographs.
What strikes me looking at them, and just as I find it breathtaking about the images themselves, is it's the size of the dust cloud, is seeing how much of Manhattan is engulfed by engulfed by the physical enormity of that disaster. And we look at the footprint now, and we look at the images that we've seen from the ground of the towers falling. And there's a few images of people sort of running from the dust cloud, and you get some sense that it felt big at the time. But to see the entire southern part of the island engulfed that way, being there, it must have been hard to have any sense of perspective about how big this was.
Oh, it surprised us tremendously. It really... It covered the whole lower Manhattan. It was very surprising that the cloud was that big. Came out halfway across the Hudson River, almost.
When we look back at this now, what do you hope people take away from having this access to what you saw that day?
Well, I hope that it gives them a better perspective of what happened that day, and it gives us an historical timeline of the events that occurred. You know, it's something we should never forget. It was a sad day.
Detective Greg Semendinger retired from the New York City Police Department after 35 years, 20 years of the aviation unit. Thanks for talking to us about this. I know that you've had a lot of attention because of this. I appreciate you making the time.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad the photos are out now.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.